All right, guys, I am here with Matthew Ho. Matthew, say hello.
Hi, it's nice to join you.
All right, Matthew, I know you're running as a third party candidate in North Carolina. What has your experience been like with that so far, and why did you decide to come out today?
Yeah, I am. I am the Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate in North Carolina. It has been, as people would have said, it's like swimming uphill. It really is. It's difficult. We've had a lot thrown against us. We had to get on the ballot. With you in the show, we went out. We collected tens of thousands. A great deal of enthusiasm for another political option, for political change, but also too for independent politics. And then we were met by the full weight of the Democratic Party opposing us. We spent months this summer in federal court and in state court in order to get on the ballot. We won, and now we're in the last month and we're campaigning. But I came up here to D.C. because this is so important. I mean, this is about the accountabilities of our wars of the last decades. This is about the millions who were killed in those wars, who have had no voice, who've not been recognized, their memories want to be extinguished by the American war machine, but also too the very real threat that the Assange case is to our institutions of free press and free speech.
That's right. Well said there, Matthew. Another question I wanted to ask you, your name has come up a couple of times, especially on one of the interviews that I was in, for the idea of president. Do you think you would ever consider that going down the line?
We were just talking, I was literally saying how like you're like one of the ones I listen to every week. I have to rethink that now. No. I mean, you hear people say this about, you say, I just got to get through the next month. And it's true. When you're in this position, I don't think that's something for me. Other people have to do it. The thing I've been concerned about most with our campaign this past year is about building. It's about building an infrastructure, building a network, building something in North Carolina for left independent politics, something that can expand regionally. So I'm not so much concerned about how we're going to do on November 8th as much as how much experience have we gotten our people. Like how many future campaign managers have we gotten experience for? How many future treasurers have we gotten experience for? How many future media people? We'll get more candidates, but we need that base. We need that infrastructure because we really need this electoral political part of the left movement. It needs to tie in to labor. It needs to tie into direct action like we saw here today. It needs to tie into mutual aid. It needs to tie into the communication, things. And so we need to continue to build the political or electoral aspect of the left. That's one of the challenges rather than being in the debates, Libertarian and I last night were given the ability to be in a pre-debate interview. When you go and check the website today, those interviews aren't available. So you're continuing to be paid lip service. You're thrown crumbs. I mean, it's really quite it's quite atrocious in a lot of ways how the established interests work together. This really is an edifice that we're up against. It really is a Leviathan that we're up against. And you continue to see that. And what propels that is the money. I mean, I would say that's the biggest challenge we have right now, practically on the left for independent politics. Is the money aspect of it, is to whether it's the money you need to make sure that, in my case in North Carolina, 7.3 million people know who I am. If the first time someone sees your name is when they're marking up the ballot, they're not going to work. They're not going to vote for you. So how do you get your name out there? How do you let people know who you are, as well as that you're an option, what you represent, who you represent, but then all the other aspects about money. You're talking about running a campaign for a year and a half. You have to pay your people. You have to pay your people. People can't, so there's all kinds of things that are obstacles, but, we're working on that. I think we're going to find better ways to deal with that, to take care of that in the future. But it's something, I'm excited for where the left is going politically. I think so many people are behind us. And I think what you need to do, or I shouldn't say behind us, I think we're behind. It's the other way around. We're behind so many people. And I think, we connect the politics to the labor, to the direct action, to the movement building, to the communications piece, to the mutual aid. And I think that is something that allows us to accomplish those things that we need so desperately.
Well said. And one more thing I want to mention is you mentioned the money aspect, which I think is really important. A lot of times people point to someone like Ross Perot and they said, well, Ross Perot was able to get 18% of the vote as a third party candidate. But what people don't realize or may not realize is that Ross Perot was a billionaire. So when you have the money, it's a lot easier to get your name out there like that.
Oh, absolutely. The money. I mean, look, in North Carolina, the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina in 2020, they spent $300 million on that race. I'm not sure what it'll be like this year. You imagine it's going to be about the same. I mean, that money purchases loyalty, that purchases allegiance. Anyone who thinks that that money doesn't buy the politicians, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I really don't know what to tell you. So, I mean, that's what, but, you know, we have to look at this asymmetrically. We can't just run headlong into that. Right, we have to. How do we fight this asymmetrically? And one of the things I think what we have to our advantage is this. I mean, like, look at this. I'm talking to a guy with a phone, you know, and this is like we're living the Jetsons right now, you know, in a sense of what our capabilities are with technology to communicate, to inform, to educate, to mobilize, to coordinate. This wasn't something we had 10 years ago. Is barely something we had 5 years ago. So I think where we can go with this, we still don't really even realize that yet. And so I like to say to people that, you know, yeah, at times it can look bleak. At times that you feel like there's no hope. Times you can say, well, hope is about, you know, but the idea is that we have to do this. There is no alternative. No one is coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves. And so for anyone who despairs about politics, who despairs about electoralism, who looks at, say, the movements over these last decades, Occupy, or say the Black Lives Matter after George Floyd, said, look, we put 25 million people in the street and what changed? We keep hammering away, keep persevering. We will win.
That's right. All right, Matthew Ho, Green Party candidate. Thanks so much, Matthew.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing.
All right, guys. That one went out, didn't it? I thought so. I was like, it turned around. Thank you for coming out.
Argue or anything. I don't even know what's going on.
But you're from
I'm from North Dakota.
North Dakota?
Yep. I'm just in town with my cousin for the weekend, and I heard this was going on, and I had to come support Julian.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I'm a hardcore water protector, and I've been arrested a lot. Last year, I was arrested at the DOI last October when we occupied that.
Mm-hmm.
And that day, they took down our cameraman. And our cameraman's been arrested before in Minnesota fighting Line 3 in May. And they kneeled on his neck and they sprained it. So he was in a neck brace. And so when we came to D.C. in October for Indigenous people in fossil fuel, we noticed that it was the same.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks. We noticed that it was the same police that we were coming across in Minnesota. They came down here to DC when we all came. A bunch of water protectors. We came down here from Minnesota for Indigenous Peoples Week last October, and we had all those events and stuff like that. So our cameraman, who was brutally arrested months before that and had his neck sprained, when we were visiting the Department of Interior building and they came to arrest us, they came for our cameraman first, and they took him down and they took his camera, broke his camera, and kneeled on his neck. And they didn't take down any other media in there. So I've seen firsthand how the media and how journalists are attacked, especially when you're on the front lines. And I just really appreciate what you guys do. I really, really do. If it wasn't for y'all, I mean, I probably would still be facing charges if we didn't get all that on camera. I was arrested twice in Minnesota for resisting Line 3. One of those times I was praying on a bridge over the Mississippi River. We were not blocking traffic. We were not stopping construction, but the sheriff decided to arrest us on public nuisance because they know who we are. We've been doing events and rallies in that area. So they arrested us for praying and took us to jail. And our cameraman got that whole thing on camera. And that was very instrumental in getting our charges dropped because we should have never been arrested in the first place.
Right.
But yeah, I had to come say hi. My brother turned me on to you. We are big fans all the way up in North Dakota and Minnesota. He's in Minnesota, I'm in North Dakota. But yes, thank you so much. And I just had to stop by and say hi and thank you. Like, really.
Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
My brother asked me to ask if we would possibly be able to get on your show to chat. I know he was running for Senate here. And then, of course, all our battle with Line 3, and we still have people facing charges, and then the battle with Line 5, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, just email.
Email you. Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I do read the emails. I read the emails. I read them.
Yeah, he's like, you got to do the shooby-dooby-doo thing. Like, I guess he knows me. If I'm willing to face cops and pipelines and stuff like that, I'll go up and meet someone I appreciate so very much. And the way you report on things too, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Can I give you a hug?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm sorry. It's a little weird. I know.
No, thanks so much. I really appreciate meeting everybody.
Right now.
Oh, yeah?
I'm going to be getting a call hearing all about it. But thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I'll let you go. Sorry.
All righty.
Great. How are
All
you?
right. Hi, John. All right, guys. We have John Carriaco here. Greetings. Why did you decide to come out for the Assange event today?
You know, I've never said no to an Assange event. That's how important this kind of thing is to me. Julian Assange is responsible for telling the American people things that they have a right to know about what their government has done in their name. You know, we have a right to know if our government is committing war crimes or crimes against humanity. We have a right to know if our government is spying on us illegally. You know, it's a part of NSA's charter that it's not allowed to collect information on American citizens. And yet that's almost all that it does, is collect information on American citizens. We wouldn't have known that had it not been for Ed Snowden and Julian Assange at WikiLeaks. You know, with the Vault 7 revelations too, which really I think is what triggered the Trump administration. WikiLeaks told us that that the CIA is able to take over our smart TVs and use them as microphones, even when they appear to be off. They told us that the CIA is able to take over control of our cars remotely. For what reason? To make you drive off a bridge or into a tree or off a cliff? Why would they need to do something like that? So, you know, these things that are kept in the shadows, that are clearly crimes, we have a right to know. We own that information as Americans. And we've had to depend on Julian Assange to make sure that we have access to that information. So in my view, his actions have been heroic, not something to prosecute, but something to celebrate. I'm very disappointed in the mainstream media and their refusal to acknowledge the fact that he's a journalist and a publisher, the fact that they base much of their reporting on things that he has released to the public. And so, you know, if they're not going to stand up, I feel like I should, and as we all should, and I never say no when they ask me to come to an event like this.
Well said. John, did you come? You came to our anti-imperialist summit for RBN?
I did.
All right. That's right. Awesome.
I have trouble saying no. I love these events. They mean a lot to me. You know, one thing, the one nice thing I can say about my ex-wife is when I got arrested, she said, well, on the bright side, you don't have to hide your politics anymore. And she was right.
That's true. This is true. Well, John, thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. Anything last words you want to share with the people? Where can they find you?
Sure, thank you. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter, John Kiriakou, johnkiriakou.com. And I would urge you to please pay attention to this Julian Assange situation. It's really coming to a head, and it's something that's important for each and every American. This isn't just some story that's out there in the ether. This impacts every one of us. So please stay focused on it, show your support, and help us with Julian Assange.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
All right. I see a DC for statehood for DC t-shirt.
How are you? Great, thanks.
Can I ask you a quick question about statehood for DC? Can you explain to everybody the significance of that? Because some people are like, well, why does DC need to be declared a state? It's a district. What is the importance of that, of statehood for DC?
Well, it's a district legally, but in fact, it's a colony. And the U.S. Congress routinely overrides, or at least in the past, they routinely would override actions by our elected mayor and city council. And we are ruled like a colony, like the 13 colonies that declared their independence from Great Britain 250 years ago. So the United States, I believe, is the only country in the world where the capital city is a separate district and is ruled in such a way. And one of the things I like about events such as this rally for Julian Assange is that it brings together people who see that all of our issues are interconnected and that the loss of democracy affects all of us in different ways, but affects all of us, and that we have to stand together as citizens
Well
every
said.
way that we can.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much for that. I saw the T-shirt. I had to shout it out. I was like, statehood for DC. I got to do it. I got to do it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much. All right, Kevin, are you available for a quick chat? Hello.
Hey.
All right, I'm here with Kevin. Kevin is a Chicagoan. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. All right. So Kevin and I are out of towners here who came in for this event. Can you tell everybody why you decided to come for this event and why you feel like Julian Assange is really important for people to pay attention to?
I found what Stella Assange and all the people in London did to be hugely inspirational, and it moved me to not just sit in Chicago and watch this event over a live stream, but to come here and add my voice to a roster of speakers, very esteemed speakers, including yourself and others like Chris Hedges and John Kiriakou and Ben Cohen, who would get up there and crystallize for everyone what it means right now. I mean, we're in a pivotal moment because there is an appeal that is moving through the UK courts, and there's an opportunity to get behind that because now for the first time, Julian Assange and his legal team will get an opportunity to argue these wider issues that were not on the table before. And these are issues that people who care about this case have been wanting to be front and center. I had people many times when I covered the US government's appeal during the earlier round, before the extradition was approved, who complained and said, why are we just talking about Julian Assange as somebody who's become mentally ill and unstable? Why are we just talking about Julian Assange as somebody who's sick and is going to die in prison? I don't like that. I want to talk about why we need Julian Assange and why we need journalists like Julian Assange, why we need documents that can show and expose war crimes. I want to talk about press freedom and freedom of expression. I don't want to talk about whether he's going to commit suicide in prison if he comes to the US or not. That's truly dark. And yet that was what those hearings were about, because that was the issue that was on the table, that, you know, an earlier judge had actually ruled that it would be oppressive for health reasons if Assange was extradited to the United States. Now, we can't forget that. And we also should be really upset and irate at the fact that the US State Department, with the figurehead of Antony Blinken as Secretary of State, was able to intervene, effectively meddle in the case by submitting a note to the UK Foreign Office that gave these diplomatic assurances that are not worth the paper they're written on. That's what a lot of people say. And I think it bears repeating, because these were assurances that even if tested, and their lawyers got a chance to test them in a 2-day hearing, they're not proven. You can't rely upon them. Things like, oh, he could be transferred to Australia to serve a sentence.
Right.
Oh, he could go to the United States and he won't be put in solitary confinement. And we will make sure he has available mental health care. Well, we can get into all of the reasons why those are bogus assurances. But I think the focus on our minds right now is what can we do to get this Justice Department to back off and no longer pursue this case. And I think that's what today was about, was being here and showing them that this entire globe is tuned into this case, because it's not just DC and London. We had Melbourne in Australia that had a day of action. And right now there are events that are going to be going in the Central and Mountain time zones and in the Pacific time zone. There's an event in Seattle. There's a San Francisco Bay Area event. So everybody looked at what Stella was doing and they were inspired.
Very well said. Yeah, I was gonna tell people that. I think there's one in Denver too that was added as well. Yeah, it's huge. If guys, if you get the opportunity, please try to check online for clips for the one in London because they were trying to make a circle around Parliament. So that one was like that was huge. That was like a big deal. But Kevin, before you head out, where can people find you?
You can go to the dissenter.org. That's THEDISSENTER.org and find all the updates and reports that I do on Julian Assange. Thank you. It's been good talking to you.
All right. See ya. All right. I am here with Esther Veron. She came out here also for the Julian Assange event, and she was a speaker here. And I want to ask, like, why did you decide to come out today?
Oh, I came out because I mean, there's almost nothing more important right now than to stand up for Julian Assange. And by standing up for him, we're also standing up for ourselves and our right to get the truth and have correct information, to know what our government is doing. And so in this time when we have billions and billions of dollars going overseas for war, we have more than $1 trillion annually set aside for war in this country. This is almost like a war economy. And Julian Assange is one of the few journalists who was able to tell the truth about what is really happening with our tax dollars and how so much of our money that could be used to have clean water in Jackson or clean water in Flint, or to make sure our public schools, have equipment to, keep our children safe, whatever. I mean, there's so many things that we need to do in this country. And so when you really think about those resources that are going into war and spying and espionage and torture and to hurt other people around the world, these are the things that Julian Assange let us know. And so there's almost nothing more important than that to let the public know what's really happening.
Well said. It was mentioned earlier in another speech, someone said that about 50% of people didn't know who Julian Assange was. That actually wasn't shocking to me because most people that I talk to, or I've mentioned this issue to, are like, who is Julian Assange? Are you surprised by that?
Yeah, I'm surprised because, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm surprised because the politicians, especially here in DC, have made it such a point of demonizing him and raising up his name as the false reason why, for example, Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election. So he's been so demonized here in DC, and then through corporate media around the country. I'm surprised that people wouldn't know who he is. But even if they do know, they don't know all the things that he's done and all the reasons why we came out for him today, because he's the one who let us know about war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq and just things all around the world that we wouldn't know about if it wasn't for him.
Well said. And before you head out, where can people find you?
Okay, I produce On the Ground, Voices of Resistance from the nation's capital on Pacifica Radio, and it's on podcast at On the Ground with Esther Veron.
Awesome. Esther, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Yes. I didn't tell you guys about the backdrop, I don't think, right? So if you look at the signs here, these are all different faces, different messages, but similar in ways. I am Julian Assange. Press freedom is my freedom, because again, this affects all of us, not just one individual. We are Julian Assange. So you can see all the faces here. Australia, bring Assange home. If we come down here, some of these faces you may recognize. I know one in particular right here. That is Glory from MCSC Network. And so the point that they're trying to get across with this is like, this affects everyone. Like, if you care about free speech, this will affect you. If you care about freedom of press, this will affect you, regardless who you are. So everybody should be aware of that. But yeah, we can go I guess say hey to or goodbye to peeps. Ophelia! Bye-bye! Misty and Colin, yes, I do need to. We'll wrap up with Misty and Colin. See, it's a great event. All right, so we have Colin. Colin, you want to say hello to people? I'm about to wrap up.
Hi, everybody.
Oh.
Hi, everybody. How you guys doing? Hope you're doing well.
How do you think? How do you feel about freedom of speech? Because you're an educator, and there's books that are being banned throughout the country. So how do you feel about all this?
Um, from that context, it's depressing, especially given the things that they're trying to, trying to replace it with, which is often not true. And I think especially being in an industry where allegedly, and I say allegedly because it's truth based on who's telling it. So, and it's not often connected to our stories. It's usually most of the time, depending, especially if you look at history, it's usually tied to white supremacy. Um, but it kind of takes away the idea that our stories are not being represented, as far as in the classroom, which in a larger scope is not being represented in media and then like in like the global consciousness. And I think it very much connects to what's happening to Assange is that if the government is doing this to him, then it can eat, and we're beginning to see that is happening to us as well on a smaller way, but I don't think people are making the connection that, what we're seeing in schools is almost kind of linked to what's happening to Assange. So the idea that people do not know what's happening to Assange, I think the fair majority of the people in this country, I think, it's very telling, but also at the same time, I think it makes this issue a lot bigger one just to kind of say, hey, if they're able to do this to a journalist, then they can do that to me as a teacher. And it's happening to teachers already in terms of teachers are leaving or being fired on account of what's being presented as truth that certain school districts are trying to shield that truth away from our students. So that being said, I think in tied to this, I think this is my fourth Assange event here at DC. I think this is definitely the biggest one. So it kind of surprised me, with the size of it. But I think I know it made Missy feel very good. But I think it was a very good showing. So it just shows that I think the word, especially Assange, I think is growing and people are kind of more resonating to it. And I really are connecting with it. So obviously we need to keep doing more of these, but this was very promising, the fact that we had a crowd this large who were able to come out and stand in solidarity with Assange in regards to press freedoms.
Yeah, there was a lot of people here, especially I loved like the yellow ribbon when we all wrapped around and walked around. I thought that was great. But no, you're right. It does mean that more people, it's growing and more people are
I think
are
even
learning.
in London, I think they're saying between 5 to 10,000 people were at Parliament today, which I'm honestly, it shouldn't be surprising, but it is, just given how much, corporate media is trying, always kind of downplays issues like these. So the idea that many people in London were able to come and represent it, but I think that also shows in a lot of ways the power of independent media and how much pull that we do have in terms of getting the word out and kind of sharing that truth for people to respond to it. So, I mean, obviously Missy organized this and we're very proud of her, but I think she's been very consistent in talking about Assange, which I think is what is needed, like that consistency. Um, and, but this is a promising start to kind of see as many people this time kind of coming out and showing solidarity. So it was
That's right. That's right. Colin, thanks so much. Before you go, where can people find you?
You can find me on INN, Indie News Network. I'm on INN News with Reef Freeland, Wednesday nights generally at 9 Eastern Standard Time. And then you could follow us on Twitter at Get Indie News.
All right. All right. And then we're just going to do one more final Misty, Skadoots with Misty. We just wanted to say bye and wave to the people. Yeah.
Hi guys. It was amazing, actually. We had a really great turnout. The march was really powerful. Having the big yellow ribbon going around the Department of Justice and like a show of solidarity with London was really powerful. And amazing speakers. That was some amazing speakers. So yeah, and Sabby spoke. Yay!
How did you feel that? People were saying like this was a larger.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We usually get maybe on average like 40, 50 people out here, and it's the same 40 or 50 people every single time. And we had this was definitely our biggest turnout for sure. And I could like there was a different energy. Like it was really kind of palpable. I think people are really starting to get it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was good. It was good. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
All righty. All right, guys. That's it. We're done. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, spending your Saturday with us. But that's it. I'm out. Peace.